Everybody. Nice to be here again. So, I know how to do this. So today's topic: why God won't go away, and we are very happy for that. By the way, yes. We start with a citation from True Father. Throughout history, mankind has been pondering the fundamental question of whether or not God exists. But history has developed until the present time without a definite answer being found to that question. However, if God exists and is a personal God as well, whatever God may think and plan is the ideal which all mankind ought to seek. Therefore, the most basic question to man's life revolves around whether or not God exists and what is the true relationship between God and mankind. However, mankind has not done such a good job to answer this basic question, if God exists or not, or to understand if God exists or not. Some people may even argue that God is dead. But today's topic is why we cannot dismiss God, why God just won't go away. But first, let's have a look at the current situation here in the Nordic countries and in Sweden. So, World Values Survey, it's a research project, and you investigate what cultural and tradition and values, beliefs. So how important is tradition, how important is religion, and how it changes. It's kind of a cultural map. And this is how it looks like now in 2023. So down in the bottom left corner, you find, it's hard to see, but you find African and Islamic countries. Their tradition is strong, religion is important, and you have a lot of traditional family values. And also they emphasize economical and political security. But then you have up in the right corner, you have Protestant Europe. There we are no longer interested in religion, and traditional values not so important. But it's very important to be able to express yourself, and the individual is important. In short, if you move down, you become more religious, and if you move up to our corner, religion is not so high on the agenda. So, and if you have a closer look at this map, what do you see on the very, very, very top? Yes, Sweden. Yes. We are the most extreme. We are like an UFO in the top corner. Mm. And then, of course, we have people from Norway, Denmark, and Finland, and perhaps Iceland. So what about these countries? Well, they are all up there too. Not as extreme as Sweden, but still, you know. So in terms of religion, this means that Sweden is one of the most secular countries in the world. So there's an indifference and even sometimes even hostility to religion. So you can say that in the Nordic countries we have tried to take away God. We've done our best, you know. But have we succeeded? That is the question. Anyway, there are serious consequences of this because, I mean, you have studied this, you made scientific studies, and it's clear that many feel that there is no purpose in life. There are a lot of existential questions. What is our purpose? Why am I living? What is the meaning of everything? And people don't have answers because the tradition is lost. And where should they go to find these questions? And especially in Sweden, especially among men, young men, this is a very crucial problem. and leads to depression, and it's a serious problem, actually. It sounds very depressing, doesn't it? Yeah, what should I do? Oy, oy, oy. But as I said, it's not possible to take away God, because we are naturally inclined to have a relationship with God. God just doesn't go away. And the question is, why have human beings always longed to connect to something larger than ourselves? Why do we have this longing? And why are we somehow searching for a spiritual quest? In short, why does not God go away? Well, we have a good citation here. Our soul is like an iron needle drawn to the magnetic pole of God. And the Bible says like this: He set eternity in human heart. So there, God put something into us, eternity, and we are always searching, whether we understand it or not, it is something there. Yes, we are messed up, and we have a lot of problems, but there's always a way back to God. So, like an iron needle, an inner tendency. It's like what says in the Bible, the prodigal son who left his home, but he found his way back to home. It was possible. There's always possible. And God actually rejoices when the prodigal son comes back. There is no scolding there. It's joy. So we are actually creatures who are seeking purpose. We are seeking meaning. We are seeking dignity. Something more than just our external environment and everyday life. And this kind of deeper longing, it's actually also the longing for God. It's somehow in the same field. But there is also scientific proof that there is something in our brain that calibrates with spirituality. Have you heard about neurotheology? No, I hadn't heard about this either, but now I know. So, neurotheology is you study the relationship between human brain and religion. And people are actually doing this at universities. And a few years ago, vänta nu blev det fel här. Nej, vad är det här då? Oj, 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 oj. Nej.
Är det fel sajt?
Ja,
Du går framåt.
Nu får du hjälpa mig. Ja. Där nästa. Ja, där, okej. Well, we are lucky to have Peter. Young national leaders. So old national leaders can take a break. Okay, let's start again. A few years ago, this book came out, Why God Won't Go Away, as the topic of the sermon. So it's researcher Andrew Newberg. He's a neuroscientist from University of Pennsylvania. He asked the question, how does the mind move us to be spiritual? And he found that the religious impulse within us, it's like in the biology of human brain, like we are kind of hardwired for spirituality. And how does he prove this? Well, he took a group of Franciscan nuns who are very good at praying, and then he took a group of Tibetan Buddhists who are very good at meditating, and it was kind of a big group, like 225 or something. And then they took brain scans, like photos of the brain. How does it look before, like in everyday situation, and how does it look during meditation? And of course, when they were meditating, or praying, they had the feeling of calmness, of unity with God or with the greater all. And of course, they felt rest and quietness. And I have to emphasize that the whole brain was changed. But there were two places you can really note what happened. It was in the frontal brain. The activity was more focused. It was activity in the frontal brain. But the most interesting place was in this orientation area. It's parietal lobe, it's called. And it's the center that is where you have time and space. And this, you can see for yourself, this decreased very significantly. So what does this mean? Yes, what Newberg says, it actually means that human brain is naturally calibrated to spirituality. And then some people say, no, this is just happening in the brain. It's not happening in reality, you know. But actually everything is happening in the brain. Like I'm standing here. Now the carpet happened to be red, and you can all see that it's red. But you know that because something is happening in your brain. So if we say, oh, it's just in your brain, then we have to say no to everything in our life. Like we don't know anything about anything unless it goes through our brain. We can't see, we can't hear, we can't smell. So it's a valid opinion to these experiences are not a fantasy. The experiences are real. So we have a way to communicate with God. We have a way to interact. Also, religion is good for us. This is probably why we have this. Like simply believing and have a relationship with God makes us actually happy. Like for me personally, what would I be without a relationship to God? Well, not so much when I think about it. Or quite miserable, actually. Oh, so I'm kind of happy. But it's not only my personal opinion. Of course, this has been studied also. They have been studying it for 3 decades. Relationship between depression and religion. And of course, they found out that if you're religious, you have lesser risk to become depressed. And that is, of course, kind of natural. We don't, it's nothing strange with that. But the thing is that also your children are protected. And not only your children, your grandchildren are more protected. And it doesn't, it goes further. Great grandchildren are protected. So it's like, yeah, it's a network of blessing because of one person believes in God and practice this in the daily life. Of course, this sounds great. But how come that religion have a hard time? Well, Truffaut says that traditional religion doesn't understand God. So he says like this: humanism says there is no God, that the concept of God is a falsehood. Why? Because there was no clear teaching about God. So many religions have a hard time to explain God. Who is really God? And many ask, like, so many people are suffering. Why doesn't God do anything about it? You know, like it can't be a God of love and heart when so many people are suffering. So Anne-Marie, who sits here, she told me that a few years ago she was inspired to join a Bible study, and it was called God and Human Suffering. Great, what a good subject. So she thought that perhaps somebody finally had understood God, that actually not only humans are suffering, but also God is suffering, because he looks down on his children and the children are suffering. But anyway, the Bible study was cancelled because there was no interest. Nobody wanted to study about this. But last week, the priest who took care of this Bible study, he called. Now we have participants. We can start the course. It was a few years after, yeah. And then Anne-Marie asked, well, what are we going to talk about? And then the priest said, no, well, we are not going to talk about God's suffering. It's only mankind's suffering, people's suffering. Because God, he is not suffering at all. He is a happy Almighty. He cannot suffer. It's impossible. And we don't quite understand this, said the priest, but and also we can't understand our suffering, because sometimes it has meaning and sometimes it has not. And then Anne-Marie said that, no, I'm not so interested anymore. Because who really would like to believe in a God who is indifferent or doesn't care in our situation? How can we believe and trust in such a God? Not so many, probably. But that's a fact. Well, by an accident, our global news came out yesterday, and one of the themes was, who is the heavenly parent? And of course, heavenly parent is the term we use for God. And they asked the question, can we fully understand everything? No, but we can understand God in a historical context, with a historical perspective. And that is what true parents have been trying to explain. And they also showed a very interesting sequence when Sun Myung-moon was in North Korea in 1991, and he gave a speech in, it's called Mansedu Assembly Hall. It was seat of the Supreme People's Assembly. I mean, Kim Il-sung and his son was there. I mean, it was a big deal, And they were actually enemies before, you can say, because father sat in prison for many years under Kim Il-sung. But 1991, he stood there in the parliament and spoke to these people, which must have been a very difficult situation. But there, he explained the existence of God in this way. God remains unseen, correct? So when asked to prove God's existence, it boils down to whether or not you acknowledge the presence of heart within you. Dr. Jun, do you have a heart, don't you? You do, right? But have you seen your heart? Have you? And love exists too, right? Love. Have you seen love? You must realize that what cannot be seen is precious. So this he said in front of Kim Il-sung, in front of the parliament, spoke about God, and those people, they either never heard about God or they were quite against the concept of religion. But he stood there and he witnessed to them. And the same arguments that he used then is valid also today. You cannot see love. You cannot see heart in terms of emotion. You can cut out your heart, of course, then you won't live. But anyway, but heart as emotion, you cannot see. You cannot see love. But still, it's one of the biggest powers in the world to move somebody's heart to love. in a way. True Mother also has done a lot recently. She want to more emphasize Mother God, that God is not only a father figure. We have so long forgotten that God also had a motherly part. She is Mother God, full of true love and compassion. So God is actually our heavenly parent. And he is longing for people who would like to come to know him, who would like to believe. And we have to believe that there is people out there who would like to believe. But the challenge is, our society has lost the tradition, so it's a very lonely place to search. Now, who do you ask? Where do you go to? So this is the people we really have to help. What to believe, how to explore these ideas, because these are things you cannot actually read in a book. You have to experience it for yourself. Nobody can give somebody a book and you read and say, okay, now I understand God exists. It doesn't work like that. The challenge is that you have to have a personal experience. You cannot do anything else. You cannot watch a movie and then believe. So the challenge is to set up the right circumstances, like Father said, the right stage to be able to have this personal experience. But as a conclusion, I would like just to say that God is not dead and God does not go away, and human beings are hardwired for spirituality. It is built within us. Thank you.